Welcome to our service dog handler chat. This is our August chat for 2023. And today we have a very special guest that I'll be introducing. Our topic is going to be slow is fast. What does that mean and how do we do it? And so our special guest today is Ariel Babber. She's a professional certified dog trainer and owner of Fired Up Dog Training. And so with that, Ariel, I will let you introduce yourself a little bit better and we will dive right in.
Thanks so much for having me, Penny. It's wonderful to be here. So I am Ariel Baber and I do run Fired Up Dog Training. I also run the Positive Plus R Service Dogs group on Facebook. And Penny had approached me and asked if I would be willing to speak on why service dog training needs to slow down. If you're in any service dog groups on Facebook, you may have seen repeatedly posts of people who are just rushing through the service dog training process. And while I do understand why some people do it because maybe their state does not offer any type of legal protection for teams that are in training, meaning that businesses can legally turn them away if they want to enter versus a fully trained service dog who has federally protected rights as a team. But it can backfire. And that's kind of why we want to talk about that today, about why we should slow down, how we can slow down, and what that should look like.
And I don't want to interrupt, but I have to say, like hindsight's always the best option, right? And Azul has been my spokesmodel all along. And when I started training Azul, we had that exact same issue in our state, did not have in training. So at 6 months old, Azul had service dog patches on because it was the only way he could do it. Now he was a rock star and he was awesome at it. And because I know what I do about adolescence, I was able to like pull him from things during adolescence appropriately, I feel. But I think it also kind of made his ability to want to do some tasks a little bit less just because he was doing them so early. Like as a puppy, he totally loved retrieve and he was a rock star at retrieve and he did awesome until about 18 months old. And now he'll retrieve if I genuinely accidentally drop something and the other dog is not around, he will jump up and retrieve it on cue. But he doesn't enjoy it anymore. And I'm convinced that's because he did it too much too soon. And we progressed it too soon because he seemed to be enjoying it. So just a word of caution, just because your puppy is loving what you're doing, it doesn't mean they're ready to be doing it yet. So we have to kind of keep an eye on that. But I know you're going to talk about that a little bit more. And I'm really excited that your first number one with puppies is the same as my first number one as far as puppies needing to be safe. So I'll let you get right into that.
Yeah, so Penny is absolutely right. Just because your dog can doesn't mean your dog should. And we can apply that to 100 different things when it comes to dog training, not just service dog training. Just because your dog can go over 12 jumps in a session doesn't mean your puppy should because their joints are still developing. Just because your dog can do a 1 hour training session doesn't mean that your 8-week-old puppy should. But in regards to service dogs, it is so easy to accidentally, no one does this intentionally, but it's accidental and it happens. You can burn your dog out, and it might be burning out on a single task, but it could be burning out on working at all. And when they burn out like that, they may not come back from it. They may decide, nope, I am done with this. Been there, done that, and I don't want to do that anymore. So that's a really good point to bring up, Penny. And I'm sorry that Azul, he's kind of been about that task, but I'm glad you recognize it.
Well, and he has lots of other tasks that he does very, very, very well. And then I have the temporary with me right now, and she totally loves it, which is also part of his reason for like stepping back. And like if he hears something drop, he'll look at me and he'll look to see if she's around. Can she get it? And he'd much rather lay back and watch her do it. So it's not like it's the end of the world for that task, but the idea of the that I rushed it too far too fast. He got too good too fast. And now he doesn't enjoy it the way he did. So
Yeah.
it works, but I still wish he enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. All right. So, when we talk about what puppies need, and when we have a dog, and this doesn't matter if this dog is intended to be a service dog or a pet or a sport prospect or some other kind of working dog like search and rescue, whatever. It doesn't matter. This applies to every puppy. The number one rule with puppies is safety. This is not just them being physically safe and making sure that they're safe in regards to like their vaccine schedules and things like that. This is making sure they feel safe, because it doesn't matter how physically safe the puppy actually is. If they don't feel safe, we're taking 12 steps back for every one step forward. And that's just not where we want to be. For example, when we're doing crate training, do not throw your puppy in a crate and leave him there. Because even though he may be physically safe in a crate, he's not going to feel safe unless we condition the crate to being a calm and, I guess I won't say happy, but neutral place to be. And that's okay. So, if we just throw them in there and then, use the cry it out method, they're not going to feel very safe in their crate. And that's going to make containment training that much more difficult down the road. So we have to make sure that they're feeling safe, not just physically safe. We also have to remember in regards to crate training, that puppies are used to being with their litter. They are used to being in a group, a bunch of puppies all together. And mom is sometimes there, and sometimes mom is, she's got to go out and potty or she's got to do certain things herself. But they're used to being in a litter in a group. When you first bring your puppy home, this might be the first experience they've had where they are completely separated from their litter. They're with new humans. They are in a new place. And if we just put them in a crate, number one, they're going to be cold, likely to be cold. And two, it's going to be really scary because all of a sudden they're completely alone. I know that Donna Hill recommends this. This is what I did with Padme, my golden retriever, when I brought her home from the breeder. She slept in the bed with us for days. And some people will say, oh, we're not supposed to do that. Dog shouldn't be in the bed. Throw that out with the rest of dominance theory. It does not matter. It does not apply. She slept in the bed with us. Why? She was used to sleeping in a group. That's how she felt warm and safe. So we let her sleep in the bed, and I slowly introduced the crate, and that made her feel so much safer than if I had just thrown her in there and said, best of luck. We don't ever want to do that with a puppy. The first several nights, I say, should be sleeping close to humans. If it's possible for the puppy to sleep in bed with you, I'd recommend it. Some people have medical conditions, or maybe they have to sleep with like sleep apnea machines and things like that, where it may not be safe for puppy to sleep in the bed. But in that case, puppy should be as close to the people as possible so that they can feel safe on that first night. And then in regards to like vaccine schedules and things, hopefully we're all learning that you don't have to not socialize your puppy till they've had all their shots, but we need to socialize safely. So if you're in an area that's high traffic with a puppy, like a sling or a stroller can be a great option for keeping them safe, but letting them have some of those experiences. And then in regards to other things puppies need, proper socialization. This window is tiny. When you bring your puppy home, whether puppy is intended to be a service dog or not, some people bring puppy home and go, oh, I've got some time to socialize my puppy. Think about it in terms of I've got no time to socialize my puppy. You have weeks. And there are new studies, and I don't have a link for those studies. I need to find it, that suggested dogs like retrievers might actually have a slightly longer socialization period than we initially thought. Some breeds, and I think what I read was they named German Shepherds specifically, have a smaller window than we thought. And don't quote me, but I want to say what I read was for Shepherds, it closed more between 12 and 14 weeks.
Yep,
And
German
then
Shepherds is my specialty. So yeah, they definitely, the window closes earlier and they need like twice the amount of socialization as what a lab or golden would need. And we also, I think, need to kind of define what socialization is as well. And so, old school thinking is it's meeting lots of people and dogs. And we now know that it is not necessarily meeting people and dogs, it's experiences to the senses. And they have the same senses we do: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. And so we need to look at positive experiences that touch on all of those senses. And I would say as many as humanly possible to get in during that critical time frame. Go ahead.
um yeah, so the with Padme, with my golden, I did not bank on having extra socialization time with her. I banked on it closing at 16 weeks. And then I just threw on some extra socialization for the rest of that time up to about 20 weeks, because I think that's what I read was retrievers have more like 20 weeks of age is when that window closes. Um, just so that I could socialize her as much as possible in a safe manner. But so when somebody asks me about socialization, and somebody actually just did in my service dog group yesterday, so kind of funny that got brought up right before our chat. Um, what is socialization and what's most important about it? And I said socialization can be summed up in one word: neutrality. It's not about meeting. It's not about getting up in other dogs' faces. It's not about being shoved at people and saying, please pet my dog. We have to socialize them. It's about being neutral. It's okay for them to meet people and dogs. I'm certainly not saying that they shouldn't, but it's more about watching the world go by and being okay with that. Watching groups of people walk by, watching cars go by from a safe distance, seeing different types of dogs. They don't need to be up in their face, but big fluffy dogs, small dogs, larger dogs that are maybe slimmer in frame, like greyhounds. It's more about seeing and experiencing and less about being up in it. Especially for a dog that we're intending to be a service dog as they grow, we don't want to set the precedent that they're going to meet every person and dog they see. We want the default to be simply existing in that space with them and not really caring about it. It just is. It requires no interaction from them. Um, and you can, like I said, you can absolutely have your dog meet people and dogs. I'm not saying don't ever let your dog greet anybody, but we want the main focus to just be, oh yeah, people. Okay. Oh, there's dogs. Whatever. And to be okay with that. With surfaces, like we want to have them experience gravel and mulch and grass and concrete. We want that to be a very positive experience. And it's not so much shoving them at it, but helping them feel safe during that time. Um, sorry, I have notes and I'm going back and forth between the chat and the notes, so please forgive me for any pauses.
You're totally fine. And I was just putting in our chat group that I made that mistake with Azul as well. Now that like I socialized him to all the senses and everything, but I let him meet and play with far too many dogs because he loved it so much. And I paid for that during adolescence when he still wanted to meet every single dog and struggled longer than he probably would have learning to ignore other dogs. And now he's got it down. He has no problem ignoring them, especially when he's in work mode. Out on a walk, he might struggle a little bit sometimes still. But it's that was my bad of letting him play too frequently. every time he saw a dog, he played, and it becomes routine when it's every time. So yeah, we all make mistakes, and that was one of my big ones in rushing him just a bit too much. I also didn't recognize the signs when he was done playing with every dog early enough. You know, there were some times in adolescence, and I know we're going to talk more about adolescence, but there were some times in adolescence where he was scared of certain other dogs, and I didn't realize it because Azul's fear signs are a little bit different than the typical fear signs. He goes more into the freeze, which I thought was his very well trained look at that game and just watching other dogs, and didn't realize that he was actually in that freeze moment until he had practiced that much more than I wished he would have. So kind of a delayed, because it was unusual response. I didn't pick up on it right away. So that's a big one. We need to make sure that we are setting the norm. Yes, they need friends. Yes, they need to play, but not with every single dog they meet. As a service dog puppy. Go ahead. I think you're next up on your list is house training. And I know that's a common one that people really struggle with, because we've all, I don't know about but most everybody I talk to is still in the old school rub their nose in it kind of philosophy. And we know that that is not the right way to train a puppy anymore. So I'll let you go ahead and talk about house training.
Yeah, so far when we've talked about what puppies need, we've talked about safety, physical safety, and feeling safe. We have talked about proper socialization, which is more that neutrality rather than you have to meet everyone and everything. So yeah, next on the list was house training. And honestly, I could do 4 talks just on house training. And we've learned through studies and science, to be frank, that rubbing the puppy's nose in it does one of 2 things. It will either make them never potty in front of you because they're afraid of your reaction, or they will start pottying in that exact spot because they've connected pottying with that area, which neither are things we want, because if they refuse to potty in front of you, they're not going to potty when they're on a leash. So like when you're getting ready to go in the store and you need them to empty themselves. And they may also be pottying in places you can't see it, but you're going to end up smelling it. And that is not a good thing. So with house training, number one, we have to take it slow. I have seen some professionals say if your puppy has a single accident, it's your fault and you should feel bad about it. I'm sorry. Who here is perfect? It's not me. Padme absolutely had accidents, and I minimized them as much as possible, but accident free, not likely for the first few weeks, because you're going to be learning how to read your puppy and when your puppy needs to go. And your puppy has a body that is not developed. I've read that the bladder does not actually develop the muscles that help them hold their bladder so that they don't urinate on themselves. Doesn't actually develop until they're like 6 months old, or it doesn't finish developing until they're about 6 months old. So don't beat yourself up over accidents. I did. I absolutely beat myself up. And that hurt me in 2 ways. Because number one, the more stressed I got, I have a heart condition. I have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So the more stressed out I got, the more cardiac episodes I had. But then also, when I stand up, my heart rate jumps and my blood pressure drops. So I have to stand up very slowly. Well, when your puppy is crouching and they're about to have an accident, it's your instinct to jump up to try to take them out. And so what was happening is I would jump up and then hit the floor. And my puppy still had an accident. And I was very stressed out about that. And she was freaked out because suddenly I'm just sprawled out on the floor. And that was not helping anybody. If anything, we were going backwards. So what I had, and I was taking her out like every half an hour during the day that she was awake. So stop beating yourself up about your puppy having an accident, and don't panic when it happens. Part of the reason I was stressed is because I rent a townhouse. So, there's things associated with having to keep it clean. But you know what? A little baking soda on the carpet when she pees, vacuum it up, and then put some hydrogen peroxide over it. It's like it never happened. It's that easy and it's that cheap to take care of. It is what it is, you know? So when you're house training, take them out as often as you can, but please do take them out to the exact same spot every single time. When Padme was very young, I put an X pen out in my yard so that I knew which spot to go to every time. And then as we progressed, I removed the X pen and we practiced going on a leash and we practiced going without a leash. Um, During the night, and this was rough, but during the night for like the first 6 weeks, we woke up 2 to 3 times a night to take her out. And that helped tremendously. Your puppy cannot safely hold it all night long. They can't. Their bodies are not developed enough for that. Take them out at least once or twice during the night, even when they're about 3 months old, so that they can relieve themselves. If they're holding it for too long, they can develop infections, and that's not fun for anybody. That can actually set you even further back on your house training. Um, I personally used puppy pads in my house. Now, part of that is because I have a medical condition where I literally may faint trying to get my dog outside. But there's merit to using puppy pads too. For example, if there's a natural disaster coming, it may not be safe to take your puppy outside. You know, for example, if there's a hurricane, it's not safe to take your puppy outside or even your adult dog. So having pads and teaching them to use the pads can be helpful because they're not trying to hold it for too long and you're not going out into dangerous weather to let them out. If your dog is a trained service dog and you have to stay in the hospital, hospital staff are not going to take your dog out. That is a liability on them because if anything happens to your dog, you could sue them. So you need to either have somebody come and take your dog home, have somebody come in that can take your dog out, or teach your dog to use puppy pads or a combination of all three so that you've always got a backup plan. Using puppy pads does not mean you have to have puppy pads in your house 24/7 once they're house trained. We eliminated those when she was about 5 months old, and it was fine. But there are good reasons to use puppy pads and teach your dog that it's okay to use them. Kenny, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, and I think that was a really good point. And the UTI, urinary tract infection, was really right on. It timed right after one of our members had said that her puppy was struggling with it, and then they figured out that's why the puppy was struggling, because they had a UTI. So I'm not a big fan of potty pads, but I also don't have a reason that doesn't allow me to jump up and get my dog out quickly. So, I mean, it's getting worse that I may have one day. Not opposed to other people using them. I just don't particularly like them. I also don't specifically train you pee in this spot and only this spot. I have 10 acres, so my dogs have a little bit more freedom than some dogs. Like they're always on a line or in the fenced in backyard. But when they're in that fenced in backyard, they can go anywhere they want, anytime they want. And that's at least a good acre in size that they can roam. So I really struggled with that with Roz because she was trained before she came to me that she only went potty on cue. And so we'd be out in the backyard for almost an hour. And I'm like, why have you not peed yet? And she'd just be looking at me like, help me, help me. And I had to remind myself, oh, yeah, you can go potty. Finally, I got her to where, like, in the backyard, she knows she can go as she wants. And then anywhere else, I'm still cueing it each and every time, which is fine. You know, that makes sense. And that's really what I would prefer for my service dogs. So that is one aspect that everybody has a different kind of difference of opinion as to how they train their dog, their service dog for pottying. You know, some follow a strict schedule. I don't follow a schedule. My dogs tell me when they need to go out. With a pup, I might follow a schedule. Yeah, every half hour or even every sooner. But once they can tell me they need to go, they tell me when they need to go. Even in the middle of the night, Roz woke us up at 6 a.m. this morning because she had to potty, and she hasn't done that since the first week she was here. So Granted, she was 18 months when she came, not a puppy. But yeah, it's that kind of thing. It's finding what's going to work for you and in your house. And like Ariel said, don't beat yourself up over it. And so potty training kind of goes right hand in hand with that next one of body handling. And so that's a big one. I think more so for service dogs than other pets, but all pets need to be able to be handled safely as well. So you want to talk a little bit on that one?
Yeah, so maybe I should clarify when I said taking your puppy out to the same spot to potty every time. That is something that I teach strictly for puppies who are house training. Once Padme was consistently going out and doing her thing, I eliminated that. I don't care where she goes. That was just the reason that I recommend that is because if you're walking around your yard every time, what they tend to do is get distracted. Ooh, what was in the yard over here? Oh, it was over there. And they forget. They literally forget to potty because they're distracted. And then they go inside. And what's the first thing they do? They potty. So then we're like, oh man, but I just took you out. Where do you and it's because they got distracted. But when you've got a puppy that you're house or even an adult dog who's not house trained yet, if you take them out to that same spot every time, you minimize the distraction level. But yeah, I agree with Penny. Once your dog is reliably house trained, I don't give a rip where you take them to potty. That's just a method to help them focus. And it also helps teach them a potty cue, which for pets may not be as big of a deal, but for service dogs is so important. Um, because we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to relieve themselves before they go in a store where if they have an accident, that's a big deal. I mean, per federal law, a fully trained service dog can legally be removed if they are not house trained. So just to make sure I clarify, I don't want anybody thinking that your dog doesn't go in this 5-foot spot in your backyard, then they're not doing well. They absolutely are. It's fine. That was just specifically a tip to help with house training.
That's perfect too. And I mean, it also helps with that scent association with puppies as well. And I usually do start in a limited area and then slowly work to expand that area. So, yeah, same kind of thing, just expressed a bit differently. So,
All right.
body handling for service dog puppies, future
Yes.
service dogs.
So we've covered safety, we've covered socialization, we've covered house training. Now we're going to talk about body handling. And I feel like this has gotten missed a lot. However, it seems to come back around when the dog is older and can't be handled at the vet or the groomer. So you can make this easy for you and your dog and the person handling your dog by starting as a puppy if you get your dog as a puppy. This is not just about grooming and vet visits either. This is you went walking in a field and need to check and ensure your dog doesn't have any ticks on them. This is teaching your dog how to get dressed or whatever you want to call it when they're putting on their vest or their working harness or whatever. This is about for service dog candidates, this is about things like if you've ever been to Lowe's or I think Costco has it for their freezer, these big, heavy plastic flaps you've got to walk through. There's no way to get through them without touching them. And this is where my two dogs differ. So Halligan is my lab and he's 12. So obviously he's long retired. He never got over that level of body sensitivity. I would have to part the flaps, let him walk through, and he never walked through. He'd shoot through because he was like, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't touch me. He did not like that. Padme, on the other hand, could not possibly care any less about it. And I did a lot of body handling with her when she was a puppy. And let me clarify, I got Halligan when he was 3 and he was a rescue that was in very bad shape. So completely different experiences with these two and training them. But when you've got a dog you're training to be a service dog, if you go to, let's say, a busy shopping mall, your dog could get brushed against by people going in the opposite direction. If you're walking down a busy urban sidewalk, like I automatically picture New York City, but it could be any busy urban area, your dog could get knocked into. If you're going through a clothing store, not all clothing stores have their aisles wide enough that you and your dog can get through without touching something. So it is best if your dog can follow behind you so that you're not brushing everything, but they still may brush against something. So it's not just about grooming and vet visits, although those are major points that we want to make as positive as possible for your puppy, because that can set them up for life to either enjoy being groomed and seeing the vet or making it a terrifying experience. But you want to also focus on things that your dog may encounter while they're working. And one thing that you can do to think about that is when you go out shopping, look at things that your dog may end up touching. Maybe not intentionally, but what may they brush against? Could it be shopping cart that you're picking up? That's hard and cold. Okay. Could it be a jacket somebody's carrying? That's warm and soft. Could it be those plastic flaps that have some give in them, so it's going to move when they touch it? Take a look at things that your dog may end up encountering. Another body sensitivity is enclosed spaces. So a service dog, if they're on an airplane, will need to be under the seat in front of you. Even for small dogs, during takeoff and landing, they're supposed to be in a carrier under the seat in front of you. So enclosed spaces, that's body sensitivity. So work on helping them feel safe in those smaller places. And some people will say, oh, well, I'm doing crate training, and that's fine. That's an enclosed space. But as far as grooming and vet visits, handle their body in a positive way. Don't force it. We want it to be positive. Ears, teeth, paws, tail, tummy, back, neck, snout. Handle it. Make it positive. Start with touching with one finger for a brief second and giving a cookie, and work up to stroking, or even very, very gently, simply touching your finger and your thumb around their snout, not clamping their mouth shut. You're just and giving them a cookie. Make it positive. Does anybody know what the number one thing people will contact trainers and say they struggle with their dog in regards to grooming? You can put your answer in the chat box. I'm just giving everybody a second to think and then maybe type an answer. Number one thing that people contact trainers about because they are struggling with in regards to grooming. Oh, I got 2 answers. Anybody else want to jump in? It's okay. You don't have to. I don't want to push anybody. And both of them are right. Nails. And it is so easy to practice with your puppy on holding their nails, even if you're not actually doing their nails. To practice holding their paws and practice holding, clippers against their paw, or turning on the Dremel and just letting them get used to that. That is the number one piece that people will contact trainers they struggle with. I cannot do this dog's nails, and I'm tired of having to go to the vet and having to sedate my dog to do it. And it's not difficult, it just takes time. So work on your puppy with their nails. If your dog is a puppy, work on their nails. If your dog is older, you can still work on them with their handling their feet and other parts of their body, but please work on handling your puppy's body. Penny, anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that's a really, really good one. And the amount of dogs that I've known that were great at it with puppies and then in adolescence all of a sudden decided, no, thank you, are huge. So that's something that never ends. We're constantly having to work on it in positive ways. But like even while you were talking, I was over here stroking Roz's foot because she happens to be laying down belly up right beside me. So I was playing with her feet while she's sound asleep. She doesn't care. But just to keep that desensitization going. And then she got a belly rub after that too, which she much appreciated. So Nope, that's really, really good. And if anybody has any questions on actual body handling and how to train that, I'm sure we'll do some question and answer at the end of this as well. So next up on the list is a huge one for me. Super huge, because that's the number one complaint I see in clients, both pet and service dog related, when they're struggling with challenging behaviors of any sorts, is how much sleep is the puppy getting. And I know there's a lot of stuff out there that says your puppy needs 20 hours of sleep, or your puppy needs this much sleep, or your puppy needs a nap every hour. And, you know, a lot of those are like hard, fast rules. When it comes to me, there isn't a hard, fast rule with puppy sleep. Different puppies need different things. But kind of generally, anytime you're struggling with any puppy behaviors of biting, chewing, barking, even potty training, chances are the puppy's not quite getting enough sleep. So I'll let you talk a little bit about how you do naps and where you are as far as sleep when it comes to puppies.
Yeah, so far, what do puppies need? Safety, socialization, house training, body handling. And now we're going to talk about sleep. And just like Penny said, so many puppy problems can be solved with more sleep. So many. Um, every single time somebody asks me, my puppy is biting me a lot. What can I do? The first thing I'm going to say is, well, how much sleep is your puppy getting? And just like Penny said, it's not exactly a magic number, but generally puppies sleep between 18 and 21 hours a day. That tells you how much sleep they actually need. Um, I had a client tell me, oh, yeah, my puppy's getting enough sleep. She's getting enough sleep. It's fine. And then we were continuously having issues with this puppy. And I finally said, okay, I need you to break this down for me. Give me a rough schedule on how much sleep your puppy is getting during the day, not at night, during the day. A 12-week-old puppy was getting a 1 to 2 hour nap once a day. Needless to say, I said, okay, starting today, and I had to give this particular person specific guidelines. So don't take this as a hard, fast rule for your puppy. But I said, every 1 to 2 hours, I want you putting your puppy in her crate. She was crate trained, so this was not negative for her. I want you to put her in her crate and let her take a nap. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I got a text, oh my gosh, this is her third nap and she's still sleeping. Yeah. And this dog suddenly stopped having issues. Now, not every possible problem can be solved with more sleep, but it is so common for people to not realize how much sleep they need. With Padme, when she was young, she went down for a nap every 1 to 2 hours. Or if I noticed she's getting land sharky or she's getting super hyper, okay, I think we need a nap. So we would do a calming activity, like I might give her a frozen carrot to chew on. And sure enough, in 10 minutes, she's asleep. So sleep is so important. And it's less about how much sleep they get at night and more about how much they get during the day. Think about babies, human babies, and how much they sleep. Puppies are baby dogs. So they need lots of sleep too. Their body is growing and developing a lot. So we need to make sure that they are getting adequate rest so that they can think, because if they're not sleeping enough, they can't learn anything, just like humans. And we also need to be helping their body develop properly with enough rest. I like to say every 1 to 2 hours for a puppy up to like 14 weeks. Try putting them down for a nap. For older puppies, I say every 2 to 3 hours. And then, as we go, but even older dogs need plenty of rest. It's not just puppies. They may rest less frequently, but they still need plenty of rest.
My rule of thumb when I bring a new puppy home is I always count on them never being awake for more than an hour at a time. So if they've been awake for an hour, it's time to go down for a nap. And then slowly you might see some of that transition, or you might see maybe they're awake for an hour here and then take a 3 hour nap, and maybe they're only awake for 20 minutes and take a 30-minute nap, and kind of however your routine and schedule boils out. But start with, if they've been awake for an hour, it's time for a nap. And then you slowly switch the numbers, and so they're awake longer and longer and sleeping less and less as the puppy grows and develops. I think we have one last thing on our puppy frame, and that is about obedience. This is where the slow is fast really comes in to play, because this is something that, and I think we all do. Trainers, just, regular pet owners, service dog trainers, we all tend to think, I saw this other puppy, and by time they were 4 months old, they knew 20 words and blah, blah, blah. And my puppy knows how to sit, so we all get kind of in that competition style too. But I think that kind of drives the obedience, and it really, like you said, should be the last of our concerns. After we've addressed all the other needs the puppy has, then we can think about obedience. So let's talk about obedience on a puppy level.
My rule of thumb when it comes to puppies, and some people will say this is controversial. That's okay. Screw obedience. I could not give a rip less about if your dog can sit, your dog can down, your dog knows X many words, your dog can do a sit stay for this long. Screw it. You have a matter of weeks to properly socialize your puppy and set them up for life. You can do body handling in that time. It's probably going to take you at least that time to house train them. Some dogs need a little more time than others, and that's okay. Why are we worried about obedience? And some people think the word obedience is controversial. To specify, I'm using that word to indicate things like sit, down, stay, calm, heel. To clarify for everybody, I couldn't care less about obedience. With Padme, when she came home, we focused on house training, socialization, and then eventually we started introducing things like crate training. I think it took her, I taught her name because that is important. I think the first thing I taught her was I started playing the scarecrow game, which is a form of impulse control where you start with like holding food way up and just marking them for looking away from it. And I think a hand target for like a week and a half. That's all we did. I didn't have time for anything else because I was focused on safety, socialization, house training, body handling, and sleep. Trust me, you have more than enough on your plate. When your puppy is only awake for an hour at a time, you have more than enough on your plate to not worry about obedience, okay? I'm not saying dogs shouldn't learn these kinds of cues, especially for a service dog, or a dog, I should say, that's intended to be a service dog. However, no one cares about a puppy that can sit stay for a minute. No one cares about a puppy that can down at a distance, okay? If you want to start working on behaviors that will help your puppy as they grow, start with the name game. And that's where you say their name and you give them a treat. You say their name, you give them a treat, and you do that like 10 times. And you do it 3 times a day. And you teach them to look when they hear their name. Start with impulse control games. I learned the scarecrow game from Donna Hill. Love it. It completely changed how I teach Leave It and created a much stronger behavior compared to the style where you put the treat in and you keep pulling it away from your dog. And that took weeks for me to get through before I was putting food on the ground and asking her not to go for it. Teaching your dog to settle. This is huge in a dog intended to be a service dog, because 9 times out of 10, a service dog's job is to settle until they're needed. Whether that's a guide dog being asked to settle until their handler needs them to guide, whether that's a medical alert dog asking their dog to settle until they need an alert, whether it's a mobility service dog who's being asked to settle until there's a need for their tasks, etc. it's a lot of settling and waiting. So teaching them to settle, like I used a dish towel. And first I taught her how to lay down. I didn't even name it. I just taught her how to lay down. And then I taught her that when that towel is out, if you lay on that towel, you get paid a lot. So she learned to lay on it. And we built a settle with that. And I didn't name it. I was just teaching her how to relax on that towel. And then I could take that towel places and let it lay it down. And she'd get on it and lay down, and she'd get paid for settling. And so I taught her that she could settle in different places. So I don't teach cues to puppies. I teach concepts. Now, you could argue that the name game is more of a cue than a concept because I'm teaching their name. But impulse control, I'm not asking them to leave anything. I'm teaching them the concept that just because it's in the environment doesn't mean you need to pay attention to it. Teaching them to settle. You can just hang out. We can just let the world go by. We don't need to do anything right now. And a lot of times, service dog handlers will forget and teach their dog go, 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 go. And we forget how to teach them to stop and to switch gears. Teaching your puppy how to engage with you, which would be like you're in your house and you start walking, your puppy follows you. Reward that. If they're looking at you, you can reward that. So you're kind of teaching a general engagement, but you're not teaching them, watch me and keep your eyes glued to me. We're just like, hey, yeah, it's fun to engage with me. Hand targets are super helpful for puppies because with a puppy, we're not teaching them recall yet. I do not teach come until number one, the handler of this dog that's hired me shows me that they are committed to force-free training and that they are committed to practicing and making that recall reinforced as close to 100% of the time as they can possibly get. Because recall is so important. I'm not chancing them messing up their recall cue and poisoning it. So I didn't use come when Padme was little. I taught her how to touch my hand, and I would invite her to come touch my hand, and she loved that. She thought that was a game. But then that hand target, the targeting concept, taught her how to close drawers and cabinet doors for me, which I struggle with because I struggle to bend over because of my medical condition. So that became a task later, but I taught her the concept of touching her nose to things when she was little. So don't start with cues, start with concepts. Impulse control, settling, engagement, targeting, teaching them how to follow a lure, teaching them maybe how to shape a little bit. Those are things that you can work with your puppy on, but that stuff doesn't matter unless you are covering safety, proper socialization, house training, body handling, and sleep. And I could go on and on and on and on and on about that, but I know that we've got a bit of a time clock, so trying to
well, and I think we could have, and I'm wondering because of time, how do you feel about coming back on another occasion to go over adolescent stuff and going into adulthood?
Yeah, I would love to.
Because I think that would be great. And that way we can kind of keep this one just focused as puppies as well. And that way it will help more of the new puppy owners. And then adolescence is a whole nother ball game that still has a lot of the same similar components, but more so. But I'm the same with you. The very first thing I teach my puppy is look at me when you hear your name, and awesome things come with my hands. Pay attention to my hands, whatever they're doing. So hand targets. And the other stuff comes naturally over time. It adds in. So I did an awful lot of settle as well. And, I would say if it was possible to teach a dog to settle too much, that might have happened with Azul. Very fine line. He's a husky, so known for go, 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 go. And I have to wake him up quite frequently to do anything, not necessarily to task. Like he will do his medical alert tasks in his sleep. He can be sound asleep and run to me and do that. He does that on a regular basis in the evening when he goes to bed with my husband. But other things, like the dropped item retrieve. If he's asleep, he's not going to hear that item drop. If I need forward momentum pull, and he actually really loves the pull, but if he's asleep, I got to give him that time to wake up. And it's like, all right, come on, I'm going to the bathroom now and I need you today. I don't need him to go to the bathroom every day. So sometimes he settles still. But when I need him, I may have to wake him up for that. So little things like that too. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I try not to use any cues. And this is what I tell my clients is we've all heard the don't name it until you love it kind of saying, but get that behavior, get it solid. Maybe not 100% perfect if you're working on something like recall, for example. But yeah, I don't teach recall with the word come until my dog is at least close to 2 years old. That's finally when I add in that formal recall training. Before that, we play things like hide and seek. My dogs know if I go missing, it's time to find me. And all of their lives, even Roz, who's only been with me a few months, is if I sneak off, they're running to find me. And then because I'm likely to trip and fall with my mobility issues, I also trained if I hit the ground, you recall immediately, come find me, which usually makes a noise. So even if they're not like right there on me, we practice a lot in the backyard where they have more freedom to roam. So even if they're not right there on me, they hear me hit the ground. They hear my walking stick hit the ground. And I did it the other night while my husband was eating. We ate out in the backyard at our patio table. And I had walked to go do something. And so Roz is super food motivated, will not leave my husband if he has food. Totally will not do it. But when I hit the ground, they both came running away from cheeseburger that was being handed to them. So I was very thankful for that. And they both got tons of cheeseburger and thank you. But it was just that kind of thing. I hadn't planned on it when I got up to do something. And as I was halfway there, I thought, let's do a drill and just see. And thankfully it worked out into my favor because that's my recall. Those are my two favorite recalls. Step out of sight, hide behind a tree, something, or drop to the ground. You eliminate your desire to want to chase and follow them when you do that. That's our biggest mistake with recalls is that the dog moves, we go to follow them because we want them to be safe. So then we're following them. Now it's a game of chase. And when you move away from them, hide from them, drop to the ground, it's that invitation to come find me, come see me, and that gets heavily reinforced. And then I'll teach that formal recall after all of their impulse control issues are done within adolescence and they can actually learn it and hold it. So I'm with you. Is there anything else we want to touch on really quickly before we turn it into question and answers? Do you have anything else for puppy wise?
Regards to puppies. I guess one thing that I will throw out with obedience is last is if you are intending to scent train a puppy, whether it's a medical alert, I guess if you're doing like search and rescue, like HRD type work, it's okay to start the scent training. But the only thing that you should be doing is here's the scent, here's a treat, here's the scent, here's a treat. So I will say that is okay with younger puppies, but we should not be pushing into searches or anything like that with younger puppies. I know I said screw everything else, but that's one thing you can do. Your dog can learn it when they're older, but you can start it with a puppy.
I started scent training with Azul when he was 6 months old. Not necessarily because it needed to be done. Well, actually, technically, we started much earlier. I play what I call find it games, which is just a basic search for anything. So it starts with that tug rope he's playing with. We're playing a game of tug, and I hide it between my legs. And he sees me do it, obviously. I hide it. It's there, and he comes and finds it. And then that tug rope gets hidden, maybe on a chair, maybe slightly under the couch, maybe under, things like that. So that's what we start with puppies. And then at 6 months old, he was doing some natural alerts. So I just put that medical set into the find it games for the longest time. Still didn't pair it with anything until he was even older. but just played with, hey, anytime you smell this scent, you're going to get heavy reinforcement. And so, yeah, I'll start that one at an early age too. And it's one of the few tasks I start at an early age, that and retrieve. And the reason for retrieve is because if you can make it a game at an early age, it's much, much easier. I've taught older dogs that had been taught not to put anything in their mouths as puppies, and that's much more challenging. So, but whatever you do, no matter what your training goals are with your puppy or where you're starting out, just remember moderation is key to everything. You know, the only thing I would say you can't do is real socialization too much. You can't overly socialize to real life events. You know, you can do it unsafely. You can do too much puppy play, but the socialization of just positive experiences, things, surfaces your dog can walk on, things your dog can smell, things your dog can touch and climb on, you know, things, different surfaces that you're touching your dog with, a brush, a comb, a blanket, a washcloth, a towel, your hands, gloves, you know, all those different surfaces. All of that, you cannot overdo that kind of socialization if you're doing it to a very young puppy that hasn't gone into that area where their brain then starts recognizing fear and things. And so with that, if anybody has any questions, you want to raise your hand, we'll do just a few minutes of question and answer. I know most of the people that are here live have older dogs, so they may not have any puppy questions right now. I will say that while people are thinking about questions, I will put your contact information, whatever you want there on your website, probably a given, your Facebook group. I will put those as links in the YouTube video so that anybody who's watching this further knows how to contact you. And I'm sure you're fine with people reaching out for questions. I am too. So are the other Crazy2Calm Canine Coaches. So we can help at least point you in the right direction with any puppy question that you have. Maybe a class that one of us have, maybe a blog one of us have, that kind of thing. But we can get you pointed in the right direction for sure. So if you're just starting out on your journey of training a young puppy to be your service dog, we hope this helped you. And let us know what other additional type of information you need. With that, everybody have a great day.